Hey kiddos, let's talk about 3.1 lines. Unit 3 is going to be super fun because Unit 3 we get into drawing. And so in order to be able to draw shapes, the first thing we have to master is a line. So in this lesson, we're going to get started. We're going to learn some new words here. First one's called Pygame. That's Pygame. So Pygame is the library that we're going to access that's got all of our drawing functions inside. Next one we're going to talk about is graphics. We're going to talk about coordinates. We're going to talk about the word tuple, and then we're going to talk about the word line. So the Pygame library contains graphics and sounds that we're going to use for making games. The Pygame library contains code for things like mouse and keyboard input, for timing, and for animations. The way we import Pygame is at the very, very top. So if you look at line 6 here, we have import random. And so right underneath import random, I'm going to hit enter once. So that's going to bump all of my code down one line. To import Pygame, we go right here at line 7 and we go import Py game. Okay. Now, importing Pygame is not the same as importing random. In importing Pygame, not only do we have to import it, but we also have to initialize the library. So initialize means the library has to set some things up internally before it can be used. And so not only do we have this import Pygame line right here, but I'm going to hit enter again, give myself another blank space, and I'm going to type pygame.init for initialize, and then open close parenthesis. And that open close parenthesis being there means that this pygame.init, INIT, is a function, just FYI. So that's how we initialize Pygame, and so we're going to be needing that for today. So now let's talk a little bit about graphics. So graphics are visual output from a program. So far all of our output has been text-based. We've done a lot of print statements and a lot of input, a lot of words, a lot of numbers. Now we're going to get into drawing. So drawing on a screen is actually very complicated. So we're going to start with something simple like lines and shapes, as I mentioned before. But in order to draw lines and shapes, we have to also create a window. Now, what are you meaning by a window, you might be wondering. So a window is a container for displaying a program's graphics. Most programs run inside of a window. It has a bar on top and little buttons to close the window. And windows can differ based on the system you're using. So, for example, at school, we use the PC-style desktops, but your teachers are probably using a Mac laptop. So a window is different based off of whatever system you're using. Pretty cool information. So a window is in our web editor. And so the first thing we need to do for our graphics is to learn how to open a window. Okay? So there's 3 steps to set mode, fill and flip our window. And we're going to create a window, and I'm going to walk you through the steps right here. So below where it says pygame.init, okay, so right here, line 8, that's the last line that we created. Put my cursor at the end, I'm going to hit enter again. Notice that we keep adding extra blank space at the top of our code today. So at line 9, I'm going to type W. W stands for window. And then I'm going to go equal and a sign, and then I'm going to go pygame, py game, dot display, dot set, underscore mode. And then here's where it gets a little different. So I'm going to go open parenthesis, that's shift 9. Now I'm going to do open smooth bracket. We've never done this before. So the bracket button is next to the letter P on your keyboard. That's P as in Paul. You don't need a shift key for this. We need the smooth bracket, not the curly bracket. We will use the curly bracket later for something else, okay? So I've got open parenthesis, open bracket, and I'm going to type the number 400, comma, 300. Okay. Then I'm going to do a close smooth bracket. Then I'm going to do my close parenthesis. Okay, and so for parentheses, you know what those look like. All right, so take a look at my line 9 real quick. Make sure yours matches mine. So what we did here is we write a command to open a window. It creates a window object, which we save in a variable. We call our variable W. The 400, 300 is the width and height of the window. Width and height must be surrounded by those smooth brackets. This is because they're a list, which we'll discuss later. So we'll talk about lists at length later on in the unit. Okay, we said that before. And then notice the dot notation to set mode from the display section of the Pygame library. So notice this. We've got Pygame dot display dot set mode. So that's your dot notation right there. If you remember, if you recall when we talked about dot notation. Okay, so far so good. I bet you didn't realize there was so much work in setting up a line, did you? Okay, so now let's talk about fill. So fill sets the background color, and so in this case, fill is going to be white, but we will change color here sooner or later. Window variable is going to be followed by a dot, which means tell this object to use this function on itself, okay? And there are going to be two sets of open and closed brackets together, or I'm sorry, parentheses together, because one is for the function and one is for the color tuple, which we'll discuss here in just a minute. You might be going, what is that word tuple she said to me again? Okay, so we're at line 9, all the way at the end. I'm going to hit enter again. All right, I've got another blank line here. And this time I'm going to type W, which is this variable we created at line 9. Then I'm going to type dot. Okay, W dot. Here's dot notation. Then I'm going to type fill. That's F-I-L-L, not your Uncle Phil. And then we're going to do 2 open brackets. So that's shift 9 twice. Now, here's something you might have seen before. So I'm going to go 255, comma, 255, comma, 255. 3 numbers. They're all 255. I'm now going to close both of my parentheses. That's shift 0 twice. So what do you think each one of these numbers here represents? If you've been in art class recently, you probably know. Or if you make a lot of things online, you probably know. So if you guess that it stands for RGB color value, you are correct. So in this, what we're saying is give R, which is red, 255. Give green, which is in the middle, 255. And then give blue at the end, 255. So we're going to have to figure out what color is RGB color value, 255, 255, 255. Okay? And we'll find that out in just a moment. Now, let's talk about display flip. So display flip tells the program that you're ready for it to display everything you've drawn so far. You always call this, or nothing you draw will show up. And this includes the fill command. So absolutely nothing will happen until we add in this pygame.display.flip. Okay? Now where do we put it? So we're going to find input at before input at bottom. Okay, so where is input at the bottom? Did we type an input at the bottom? I don't know that we typed an input at the bottom. Print. And that's a random number. I'm going to go all the way to the very, very bottom. Okay, I'm just adding myself some space here. I'm going to put it right here until I think that I might need to move it. So right here, we're going to type pygame, pygame, dot display, whoops, okay, please, dot flip, open close, parenthesis, okay, and because we've got that, it is a function. So before input at the bottom, did I miss something? Let me go back and look at my notes. Oh, I did miss something. Okay, so at the very, very, very bottom of the program, I've got a space now below that line I just typed. I need this, input, parenthesis, quotation mark. Please enter a close. Please, oh, I'm sorry, please. Scratch that. Press enter to close window. Quotation mark, parenthesis. I had completely skipped that part. So we need a way to end the program, right? So we're telling us now here to press the enter key to close the program. So I just added line 25 and 26. You probably didn't have a space for 25, 26. So don't forget to go to the bottom and hit enter a few times. Make yourself some space. All right, so now I'm coming back to where I just added my flip. Okay, so now let's talk about coordinates. So coordinates are horizontal and vertical. So we got horizontal X and vertical Y, just like in math class. Only in this case, X is the same as in math. When you go to the right, X increases. But in programming class, to increase your Y value, you go down. So 0, 0 coordinate in programming class is in the top left corner, not the bottom left corner. Okay, you must remember that. 0, 0 coordinate in programming is in the top left corner, not the bottom left corner. Okay, very easy to get those things confused. So now, here comes this fancy word tuple. Okay, so tuple is whenever we write out the X and Y coordinate together inside a set of parentheses. All right, so the official definition is a collection of values inside parentheses, which is basically what I just said. So it contains multiple values, but treated like a single value. Okay. It's like a bag of marbles, one object with many smaller objects inside. Or maybe you can think of it like this, a bag of chips, right? It's a bag, one bag, but the bag contains many, many chips. Agreed? Or at least until you open the bag near your friends, huh? And then everybody wants a handout. So we use this to represent coordinates and other data with multiple values. All right, so things like 0, 0, or like up here in our fill command, this 255, 255, 255, that's considered a tuple. But they don't all have to be the same value. It could be the word house, comma, and the number 4, right? And the 4 can be an integer, and house can be a string. I know, it's crazy times up here in programming land, especially when you get into, Unit 3. So let's practice a line and get into some tupling. So a line draws from one point to another, which means we're going to have at least 2 tuples in order to create one line. You guys have kind of learned this in math class, right? A line is drawn between 2 points. So what we are going to do is just before the flip, which is right down here, I'm around line 24. I might hit enter again just to give myself some space. I don't like when things are all smashed together. So right here, I'm going to type my first draw line, okay? So when you draw a line, there's a lot that we have to type in here. So we're always going to start with the word pygame, dot, draw, dot, line. We're not done yet. Okay, now it's going to get a little wonky. I'm going to write it all out first, then I'm going to explain what it all is. So I'm going to go open parenthesis, the letter W, which is our W for window, right? Comma, space, then another open parenthesis, And I'm going to go 0, comma, 0, comma, 0, close parenthesis. Can you guess what that stands for? Then I'm going to do another comma. Don't forget the commas. Space, parenthesis, that's shift 9, open parenthesis, the number 50, comma, space, and I'm going to type rand, R-A-N-D 1. You might be going, where did she pull that out? Look up here. Rand 1 at line 12-ish. Rand 1 gets random randant. So rand 1 is going to create a random number. Alright, so we're pulling a random number in here. Close parenthesis, comma, space, open parenthesis. Then I'm going to go 350, comma, space, rand 2. Right up here from line 13, see it? Rand 2 gets random.randant 0 to 300, so we're getting another random number. Close parenthesis, comma, the number 5, and our final close parenthesis. Wow, that was a lot. All right, that was a lot. So take a moment. I'm going to leave it highlighted so that you can see it in the light blue on your screen. And make sure you've got all of that in there and it matches. Make sure you've got all those commas in there as well. Okay? Now, let's talk about what each one of these things stands for. So the W right here at the beginning, that is our window variable that we created way up here. Okay? So if I called my window window, I would have written window here instead of W. Okay? If I called my window Fred, then I would have written Fred right there. But we're not going to get into that. Next thing in the parenthesis is the color tuple, okay, or the color variable. So this 0, 0, 0 here, 0, 0, 0, that is our RGB color value for our line. So 0, 0, 0 happens to stand for the color black, all right? 250, 255, 255 up here, that stands for the color white. So our line's going to be black. Then the next thing we have is our starting point. So this tuple right here, this set of data, means our starting point for our line is going to be at 50x and random number y. We don't know what rand 1 is going to be yet. Okay, so 50x, random number y. That is where our line is going to be drawn. Then the next part is our ending point. And again, another tuple. And our ending point is going to be at 350x and random number y. Okay? Another random number different than this random number because of line 12 and 13. All right? And then the final number in this sequence here is our width, or how many pixels wide the line is going to be. Okay, how many pixels wide the line is going to be. Or think about the thickness of the line, right? Think about drawing a line with a pencil. That's a pretty thin line. And then drawing a line with a marker. You know the line is going to be a little thicker if you draw it with a marker, right? So that's what this final number is for. It's for the width or the thickness of the line. All right. Now that we've got all of that, let's finally run this bad boy and see if we've made our line. Here we go. So up at the top, left-hand corner, click the run button, and there it is. Okay, and notice we got some words down here, 242, 70, 242 is bigger number, press enter to close the window. Yay, okay. So these two here, 242 and 70, those were our random rand 1 and rand 2. So to close out the window, I'm going to hit our enter key. Remember, it's above our shift button. And when I do that, hold on a second. I don't know that anything necessarily happens. Oh, maybe I need to be up here. Maybe I need to be here. Nope. Most of the time we get like an end or something, but it's just not doing that for us. Type here. There it goes. I had to click on the bottom to get it to work. So by hitting enter, program ended, window is grayed out, program is done. Okay? And so that's it for learning how to draw a line. The biggest headache you're going to have is having to remember all this new stuff that must be set up, okay, before we even get started. Importing Pygame, initializing Pygame, setting up the window. None of that had to do with the drawing itself. It's getting ready for the drawing. Okay, it's like I'm going to bake a cake, but I have to go get all the ingredients first and set it on the counter before I can bake the cake. These are the ingredients up here. Okay? The last big thing you got to remember is all of this in your line. You're going to repeat writing this over and over and over. So if you haven't gotten used to copy pasting yet, if I were you, I would, because that's a lot of stuff to repeat over and over and over. If you get real good at copy paste, that's Control C for copy and Control V for paste. That's V as in Victor, not B as in boy, V as in Victor. Then you can just kind of come through and change some of your values rather than having to retype all of this and all of your commas and all of your parentheses and all of that, right? All right, I'm going to be quiet now. I'm sure you're excited to get off this lesson. I hope you had a good time, and I'll catch you later.